Now, as you all know, Kathleen Kennedy has said quite a number of terrible things to the fandom over the past couple of months, and really kind of putting them on edge, and putting them pretty much on the blame seat, as I like to call it, for really kind of just doing what fans love to do, is being very passionate, being very excited, and having a lot of enthusiasm about what's to come next. And everything related to George Lucas's vision is something that Kathleen Kennedy seems to really get very defensive about and very much distant from. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, given that yes, Kathleen Kennedy is having quite a hard time for 2023 already, given that both the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew are going through a lot of problems, to say the least. You know, we know that there's a lot of setbacks, delays, production issues, firings of certain crew members. It's just an ongoing list of problems that, you know, it's more to handle. Now, when you look at everything about Kathleen Kennedy and what she has been talking about with her plans for the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, it really puts fans pretty much on the blame list. And she went on to do this again when promoting the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew and what she has in store for both of those shows and how they are going to be treated on the Disney Plus platform. So let's get into it. Now, we know that Leslie Headland is not a Star Wars fan at all. By the way, guys, she is the writer of the Acolyte, one of the writers, but she's the main one. She herself openly stated about 6 months ago that, yeah, I'm not really a fan of this franchise at all, but it's a great opportunity to begin working on something new and something so large as Star Wars. So, obviously, this is just a golden ticket for her, in her mind. Now, on to the next thing, alright? So, with Kathleen Kennedy still struggling with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew series, she recently spoke about something substantial and blamed the fans over something very small, turning it into something bigger. Now, in a recent interview, Kathleen Kennedy went on to blame the fans when talking about her upcoming shows. She stated the following: "Well, I think the problem in today's world is how audiences are not open to change, and I do blame much of this fandom for that, and wanting to stick to one thing only. Many fans of this franchise have not expressed as much interest in the projects myself, Leslie, and Watts are working on, because they are just not open to diversity and certain genders playing certain roles in some of the upcoming projects. Sometimes you have to trick your audience to watch stuff like that, and hook them in without them seeing it coming, and it's a strategy that we had to utilize in the upcoming shows of ours." So let me stop right here for 1 second. This really reminds me of something very familiar, where we had quite a number of writers of a lot of other shows out there affiliated with HBO and Showtime and stuff around those lines, of tricking audiences into watching certain decisions that may very well cause a little bit of an uproar. Now, when you look at things like diversity, alright, I've said this several times, diversity is fine if it fits the role of the character, you know, but if you're doing it just for the sake of doing it, it comes across as very lazy, very flat and boring, and the characters have literally just no soul. It's basically like when you take characters like the ones that you see in, let's say, for example, you know, a character like Reva. We know that she was shoehorned in there for no purpose at all, and that was strictly just to kind of promote diversity. Kathleen Kennedy even admitted to this, guys, by the way. She said that this character was meant to be used to promote all of that. Now listen, nothing against Moses Ingram, she's a great actress. I think that she has a lot of potential, but the character of Reva was just so flat, and could have, if they really wanted to write her better, they could have done that. But looking at the Acolyte series, Kathleen Kennedy is saying that she has to trick the audience into really kind of watching and accepting these types of things, where these agendas are just forced, the characters are just coming in with no development at all. Now, moving on to the next thing here is that Kathleen Kennedy goes on to elaborate and blame the fans further by stating this: We feel it's the only way to evolve both the fans themselves and the franchise along with it. I really do believe it's the fans to blame why shows with so much diversity doesn't get the traction it deserves. But we are about to do it correctly with the Acolyte, and we believe it is going to truly make itself as the biggest success for promoting diversity with all the new characters getting introduced. Now, once again, guys, the Acolyte series, we know that it's a completely agenda-driven project. We've talked about this. It's not based on character development. It's not based on the Star Wars lore or the canon. It's basically just a jarbled mess of scenes that are thrown in there that are going to be serving as eye candy, where it doesn't really hold much story so far. That's what basically has been going on with the Acolyte series, and there's a lot of production issues. We talked about this several times. So Kathleen Kennedy really putting her foot down, blaming the fans that it's we who are the problem as to why we're not really tuning into or getting excited about her shows like Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. And you know what? I think that at the end of the day, it really needs a good story. If it has a good story, listen. If it fits the characters, diversity's fine. I mean, look, it's nothing new. Alright, we have people in there in the prequels like Mace Windu. You have Lando Calrissian in the originals. I mean, it's nothing new. This has been around forever. And it seems like that there's a lot of moments where Kathleen Kennedy and many of those over at Disney try to make it and pin it on people that we're against that. It's not that case. It's just that we're against them mindlessly throwing characters in like that for the sake of doing that. But anyways, guys, the next thing that I do want to go over is she goes on to say this. We need to focus away from George Lucas's vision also to embrace new stories that could have never been done if fans were stuck with George's approach to the franchise. Again, another red flag. The fact that she wants fans to shift away from George's vision, that's just offensive to me as a fan, and I would think that George would not like that as well. That's why he has remained very distant from Kathleen Kennedy and wants nothing to do with her. So, obviously, this is why I say the Acolyte is not really going to have a soul in the story. It's going to feel very flat, emotionless, and just very much non-linear. It's not going to have a direct story. It's going to be all over the place. So, overall, there's a lot of problems arising out of those two projects. And Skeleton Crew, mind you, has been labeled as the most toxic working environment under Disney Star Wars as of yet. And that really does spell a problem. Now, the other thing that I think fans need to be fully aware of is that, like I said before, I am not against diversity at all. It's just when you mindlessly promote it and, put it into a project just for the sake of doing it, that's when I have an issue with it. And that's where problems begin to really arise. So, because it takes away from the story, it takes away from character development and potential well-written stories embedded in there. So anyways, I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say about Kathleen Kennedy blaming the fans about all of this, not accepting this or that, and not being ready for this or that when it's really not the case. So overall, guys, drop a comment below. Fill me in below what you guys have to say about this in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.